Welcome to United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America on WSGW. Now, here is your host, Kareem Bowen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America. I'm in the studio with my main men. What's going on, fellas? We got John B in the place to be on ones and twos. He's the producer.
Hello, hello.
And we have with us Mark Bassett, the guy to my right, my main man, my right-hand guy. What's happening, Mark?
Not too much.
So Mark, you've been around for a little bit.
I have been. I'll be out in a couple weeks. But,
should have known. Where are you going, Mark?
Kansas City to help my oldest son with his two daughters while my daughter-in-law's at a conference.
I'm going to Kansas City. Kansas City, here I come. All right, we got you. For those that are listening to us via social media platforms, we certainly thank you. And as usual, there are two shows, the one that you hear on the radio, but there's also the one that you get in the social media stream. So we want to thank you guys for continually coming in. And those of you who are watching us, you can watch us on our WSGW sites, Twitter, Instagram, all of those things, United Shades of Gray, Facebook. You can go to YouTube. We are literally everywhere. Did you like the way I said everywhere?
Hey,
Everywhere.
By the way, when you open with the introduction, you say good evening, but in Joliet, this is in the afternoon. So you may have to work on that.
Well, it's evening after. We don't really. I don't know. Do you know when? Do you know officially today? Good day to you. When are we actually airing in Joliet?
I'm actually not sure. I'll have to check.
I thought it was noon.
No. We were saying that it was. It's probably about the same slot. We were thinking
maybe someone who's listening to this in Joliet next week when we'll
come
on the
in
stream
in the stream and let us know.
Yeah,
absolutely. So we thank you, Joliet, at WJOL. We certainly welcome you to the audience. And I want to tell you, I enjoy you guys and I enjoy these conversations. And, someone said to me, you guys look like you guys are having fun. And it's funny because, we often talk about things that can get people, I don't want to say their panties in a bind. I don't know if we can say that on the air or not.
Well, you just did.
I kind of did. But, they get frustrated by the conversations that we have. Or they can be frustrated by the conversations. So I think that it's important for us to be able to get along. And Mark, it's so funny. So many people say to me all the time, I can see why you get along. People know me, say, I see why you get along with Mark. And I was like, why you say that? It's like, because he says what he wants to say. And so I think it's good. I think it's a good dynamic. And so we want you to continue in this journey. And hopefully you're challenging yourself to tune in and be a part of these conversations. We're going to kind of continue something that we started on last week, and I think it's going to be really cool. But before we get to that, I'm getting a head signal. No, before we get to that, we're going to I want to talk about what's hot off the press, and this is it's sad, but it is indicative of the times. And I want to know what you guys are thinking about this. We've been talking about this literally for about 2.5 years now. About young black men. I mean, it's been longer. The conversation.
Yeah, this has been going on forever.
Forever. I mean, and so now, George brings things to the forefront because I think we were all kind of like stuck in a pandemic situation and it was a captive audience. But Texas police charged an ex-officer. He's now an ex-officer. They charged an officer shooting multiple times a young man, Eric Cantu, who's 17 years old. He was sitting in the parking lot. Eating a hamburger at Mickey D's, and dude supposedly, and I say dude, I'm saying officer. The officer supposedly thought, this guy was somebody that he was looking for in a situation the night before they got away, and he comes up to him, and he just pulls the door open and tells him to get out the car, and of course, if you are like me, like. We're putting that mug in reverse. I probably wouldn't drive and just went through whatever was. He startled him. So the kid puts the car in drive, reverses, and takes off. The officer is shooting at this guy while he's leaving, and it wasn't even a dude. So this is what's crazy. Had you guys, I know that I sent this out, but had you guys taken a look at that?
I hadn't, so I looked at it for a few minutes while we were waiting here.
Yeah.
Obviously, horrific situation. Who knows what this policeman was thinking. He was a rookie. He was actually on probation. according to the police chief, violated every protocol and procedure.
Every protocol and everybody he knew to call. Yeah.
in the book. So I don't know. Who knows what drives people to do this kind of crazy thing? I don't know.
So, John, what are your thoughts?
I've seen a couple breakdowns of the incident.
Okay.
And yeah, no, it just looks like he approached the situation completely incorrectly. And I know if I'm sitting in the parking lot eating a hamburger and I've got my girlfriend sitting next to me in the passenger seat,
Right.
and someone flings open the door, first thing I hear is get out of the car.
This is a robbery. It's a stick up, right?
Yeah. Even
about to get jacked.
By the time I recognize it's a police officer, I'm already in that defensive fight or flight mode.
Man, this is.
He was called to the McDonald's for something totally different. So he just saw this.
Yeah,
kid,
he's dealing with something else. Absolutely.
Yeah. Saw this kid who he thought, I guess, was from the previous night. I guess I don't know.
Go ahead.
As horrible of a situation as it is, it's being handled properly. This is why there's that probationary year, so that they can be basically dropped from the force for any reason, for any infraction. This is a big one.
No.
It's being handled correctly, and I think have charges been brought?
Yes, they
charges
actually
have
charged
been brought.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's where I was going with this. So thank you. Finally, we're seeing some systems and how we can make small changes that can bring about a good outcome when things like this happen. And I think that this is really good. It's crazy. There is still an issue of who decided that he was a good candidate to become an officer. And I think that, I guess, with, police off stations across the country needing officers, it kind of got slim pickings these days. But it goes back to what I say, some of this stuff is training, but some of this stuff is really about us not looking deeper into the people that we're putting in control and over other people's lives. Because when you're protecting and serving, a lot of times one of the key components of that is to create an atmosphere where you can control that environment. And so, I'm glad, hey, Texas, you got it right with this one. But there is still so much improvement. And I hope the young man is doing much better. Mr. Cantu, I didn't even have to know. I was like, oh, here we go. When I saw the article, I was like, this is already happening. But anyways, so we're hoping that we can see more changes to things of this nature. There is a great need. Now, I want to talk about something. This is what I was going to ask you guys before, and I said, wait till we got on the air. Have you guys seen the movie Dahmer?
The new one?
The new one.
No.
Have you seen it?
I've seen documentaries or shows about Jeffrey Dahmer before. I have not seen this Netflix.
Okay, one. I've seen the older stuff and was super duper intrigued. Could not wait to see this movie.
What is it about serial killers that intrigues us? Yeah, I'm intrigued by them. So,
but no, I mean, I think it's the fact that what kind of a person does these types of things. But when you think about someone not only killing people but eating them, I mean, come on. Even the most non gory person would find some level of intrigue. And I think that's one of the reasons why he kind of was so, we had never seen anything like this. 17 bodies or supposed murders that he had killed of individuals, most of them Black gay men. That's a whole nother story there.
Almost all of them were gay.
Yeah.
I don't know that all of them were, but I'm pretty sure vast majority were gay.
That was his MO.
Yeah.
Well, they did. No, not all.
I think the very first one or two were not.
They were not. Yep.
But I think he found it much easier to pick up gay men probably than just some random hitchhiker.
It's crazy, but I tried to watch this movie. I did on Netflix. And have you even tried, John?
No. As intrigued as people are in serial killers and all that, I'm not for some reason.
Not at all?
No.
Man, okay, so let me those of you who are listening, and not that I'm trying to drive Netflix, anyone to run and watch this on Netflix. As a matter of fact, I could not make it through the series. As a matter of fact, I tried to watch the very first episode of it, and it was so weird to me that
but you've seen other series about him, so what was it about this particular one?
Good question.
Yeah.
What was different about this particular series was that they show you it from the victim's perspective. So you see Jeff Dahmer's, but a lot of it gives you insight into the individuals and what they saw before these things took place. And so and they start off at the very beginning, and this is what got me, there he's watching The Exorcist. He's making one of his victims sit there and naked on a bed. He's listening to his heart. They're watching I was like, this is kind of weird. And I don't do that demonic thing too well. And then just to see the things that were happening and how they were having body parts on this, it was Niecy Nash, who played the nosy neighbor next door.
Oh, Niecy Nash was in this?
She's in this.
Wow,
No, yeah.
I like Niecy.
I love Niecy Nash. I think she is a great talent. Kudos, shout out to Niecy. She's in it. She plays the next door neighbor who had been calling the cops saying there's a horrible stench. Yeah. Something's going on. We're hearing this. And so she was so bomb. Absolutely. She was the bomb. Thank you, Kawana Cash. In this movie, I was just kind of blown away at how this could happen. And this is where I wanted to go. When we look at that, as we said, 1978 to 1991, 17 victims, largely gay black men. She was an African-American woman saying that white boy next door is doing something crazy. I'm telling you. And the police continually ignored the situation.
Well, they had an incident, again, I'm recalling from a previous thing I watched on him, where one of his victims escaped, went to the police, confronted him.
And they took him back.
They took him back because they believed it was just a lover's quarrel, squawk.
Well, because that's what he tried to play.
Exactly.
So that's where that episode that you're talking about, Mark, is how they start the series out.
Right.
So they start with how he got caught in the very beginning, and then they kind of take you through each of it sounds crazy. I hate even saying it, but they take you through each of the kills individually. And there was, I guess, a deaf guy that he found that he murdered. And it was first of all, the movie was crazy. It was sick. But what it did is I began to look at how, and you look at the time frame, 78 to 91, how many complaints there were by parents, how many times he had been in trouble in the law. There were issues with him having a case against him for messing with a 15-year-old boy, and the 15-year-old boy said he tried to kill me, and he was Vietnamese or something of that nature. And the courts continually gave him a second chance. We think that you're rehabilitatable. That would have never happened for a black man. That dude would have been underneath the cage. And I just thought about it when you were saying about how the police officers, this guy he was found half naked, screaming, this guy tried to kill me. And the police take him back to the scene and have a confrontation with Jeff. And it was only until they went inside and found pictures of dead bodies that they believed the situation. And so when I look at that, I think that the courts had so much to do with this. Now, at this time, I'm probably like a high school student. I think I was probably during this whole thing. And so it didn't really register as it does now, being a grown man looking back at it, how the police and the courts view what criminals look like, and how they determine, what criminals look like, and who's good and who is able to be rehabilitated and who's not. And so I think this is a perfect example of how many times, have you ever seen the movie How They See Us?
No.
Okay, Jonathan, Mark, you guys have homework. I want you to go. I want you guys. You might be able to catch it on YouTube or even rent it. Or those of you listening, there's a movie called How They See Us, and I want you guys to take a look at it. We'll talk about that conversation because it's so powerful, and it gives a perspective.
Is this a newer movie?
It is. It's relatively, a couple of years.
Okay.
But it was a very profound look at how situations occur in black communities, and it takes place in New
this
York.
is the Central Park thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's interesting to take a look at. But I wanted us to make sure I wanted to have those conversations, but I want you guys to take a look at How They See Us. Now we're going to get back to a conversation that we started on last week or March.
Last week's stream, because we had that NAACP
we had a break in the
thing for the radio.
So if you're watching us via stream, then it was last week's conversation. But I think someone said you got to watch that movie to the end. I can't get through all those episodes. It's too much gore.
One? Is that what they're talking about?
Too much gore and too much death. Thank you, Kawana Cash, but I just can't do it. But I want to talk about something because I thought this was so funny. I tuned into WSGW, which is a very conservative station, right? This morning, and right before the man Art Lewis comes on, they're playing what were they playing? Eminem. Some song of Eminem has gone, and it made 1 billion streams.
Wow.
Okay, which is crazy. And other artists have done this, but no other artist. He's the first artist to be able to get 1 billion streams on a song in 3 different decades.
Oh, so what were the 3? The Real Slim Shady was one of them.
I would imagine Lose Yourself was one of those.
Oh yeah, gotta be.
Then this last song was The Dragon. Something about the dragon. Do you know?
No idea.
What, you ain't rocking with Eminem? I was tripping that I was
I'm
coming,
not a huge Eminem
like
fan.
WSGW was rocking out to Eminem. They said it took a while to get a clean version. But anyways, that type of I thought that was absolutely amazing.
Is that the Donald Trump one? He has a rap about Donald Trump, I thought.
Does he?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think. I'm not an Eminem fan.
I'm not either.
But
really.
I thought about the fact, first of all, that rap music has been all around so long. Most of us thought that it would have been here and gone. But secondly, the fact that you can have, that's a lot of talent. And of course, we know that rap music is purchased by young teenage white kids who are the predominant consumers of rap music, which is kind of funny.
Well, it's 70% of the population is white, roughly.
But that's who buys music. We wasn't buying music when we was
Where
like,
do you buy music?
You buy it
and
we'll
get somewhere, or
you buy the record and we'll borrow it and we'll all use it, right? But no, little Johnny up, in Cascade County Hills somewhere he's got all the downloads, and now they're downloading music. But it was 1 billion streams over 3 decades, 3 songs. That is an amazing feat.
It is.
And so I just went, hey, shout out to you, Eminem. You not only are you making good music, dude, you getting paid. So great job on what you're doing. Let's get back to the conversation. And once again, just let's make the clarification. John, you're the producer. You're supposed to make sure that we got this stuff together. Explain what our listeners are going to hear. If it's not, when will they, if they're missing a piece of this or they didn't catch the episode or the portion of this before, what are they?
So those that paid attention, those that listen on the stream, they did not get the NAACP coverage that we had of their Freedom Fund banquet.
Right.
But those that listen on the radio, they got that coverage, but they didn't get the stream from last week, where we began this conversation of how we see race.
Okay.
Are they going to get that this week?
They're going to get that next week.
They're going to get that when...
Well, you're going to get it when we give it to you, okay? No.
We'll have it at some... Well, I'm sure we'll have it at some point, but we're going to
got to play these in sequence.
You're the producer.
This is the discussion, I guess.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So
All
we're going to...
My ex-CEO kind of mentality is coming up here. Somebody's got to be in charge. Let's do this right.
With us talking about current events, though, we want to keep things current.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that the two conversations will be pretty distinguishable as...
Can I tell you something that
unique.
I recognize? Like, I always thought I was pretty good with geography, right? And I feel crazy saying this, but for some reason, this particular map stood out to me. I just realized that there are islands in the Atlantic that have the Atlantic Ocean on one side of them and the Caribbean Ocean on the other side.
You just now realize that? Okay.
This conversation.
No, Mark, it sounds crazy.
It does.
There was just, I was looking at this. I'm like, oh, so when I was
You mean like Puerto Rico?
When I was on Peter Island, there was the Atlantic Ocean on one side and the Caribbean. I mean, it was just a moment. Maybe I woke up from a blind moment.
Have you seen the videos of where they actually meet in the water? The water, and they're very different.
Yes,
and there's like a line almost.
I have seen that.
That's crazy.
But it was just something that happened, and I laughed at myself. I'm like, how dumb are you? Like you. And now I get to share that with the world out there. I want to share that with you. But we started these conversations, and whenever you're going to hear the conversation, you'll hear the first part sometime, and you're going to hear this part. But we were talking about, when we became, aware of race and how race happens. And since this is Conversations on Race in America, I thought this was really good information for us to talk about. Now I want to ask on there, I gave you the question number 1. It says, What characteristics do we attribute to race? Okay. And I want to read this so you guys hear this and so you can understand the full conversation. Since the start of this country, we have fallen prey to the insidious scheme based on faulty logic, attributing characteristics and behaviors to race that have no rational correlation. We do it so frequently and so automatically that it goes unrecognized. For example, if a Latino contractor does not complete his work satisfactorily, we are tempted to conclude Latino contractors cannot be trusted. We erroneously attribute personal work ethic to race. Or if we are cut off in traffic by a Black woman, we somehow link her behavior to the fact that she is Black rather than to the isolated driving
to the
decision.
correct assumption that it's a woman.
Oh, not one is a woman. No, but think about that. One, that it's a woman, and that's very true. She couldn't drive. They need to keep these women off the road. But then also, there's also the narrative of the angry Black woman. So when we look at this, what do we attribute it? We do. I think that that's something that is understood. How do we change how we attribute these characteristics to race? And are there some that are more pervasive than others? When we think of certain characteristics,
you're in essence talking about stereotypes.
I mean, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
How much of it, and this is the thing that everybody says, isn't it? How much of that is linked to the culture that is attached to that race?
Like white men can't jump.
Right. White man can't jump, and we know that's, I think what that says though is not that white man can't jump, because there's definitely some white brothers out there that can dunk, but I think it goes to the attribute when you think about things like basketball, which is a sport that is centered around slam dunks and jump shots. And white boys always got killer jump shots, right? And the Black guys are doing the more athletic things, jumping above the rim. But that is a stereotype.
Yeah, and so I guess I've always had this fundamental question, kind of touchy subject maybe, but
leave it to Mark for touchy subject. Here we go,
Is there
y'all.
some truth?
Buckle
How
up.
do stereotypes evolve? How do they become a stereotype? And is there a certain truth to stereotypes in the sense of a decent percentage? There's a high enough percentage of people that display that characteristic.
I'm gonna tell you what they talk about.
stereotype.
I feel it in the room, and this is what John, you were kind of asking the same question, and I feel it in the room. Like for instance, the stereotype. And Mark, we had this conversation. We had it in a private situation with another friend, and we were talking about timeliness, and it was funny because we were sitting in this meeting, which was a professional setting, and the individual was struggling to ask the question, well, how is this going? Is it going to
start on time or not?
Is it going to start on time or not? And how long do you think it? And it was just funny so I just put it out there like, you talking about what? Is this going to be on CP time? Which I often do. I just kind of state the obvious. But it was hilarious because they were struggling with because we went to this event, but that's how things are created.
Yeah.
You go, you have an experience, and if your experiences have been limited, then you attribute maybe that this is how, and then there's a stereotype. I tend to be a little bit on Jamaican time, which is a little different than CP
Is that even
time.
slower?
Yeah, Jamaican time is
even
like,
further behind.
Hey, Jamaica, Miari, everything is good.
Well, that's like island time. I grew up in Hawaii.
Absolutely.
I mean, and nothing started on. It was just like, hey, life's too short to get wound up about being exactly on time.
And not to, because I have some folks who are very, very, very timely that are my Black people. But Mark, if you were to make an assumption based upon our interaction, there was a particular, you were keynoting at this event that was happening with Michigan Banner. I was an honoree, and Marcus texted me like, dude, are you coming to your own event?
I mean, we've already started, dude.
So we do have these moments and these times when, there is, I think, probably some hint or some element of truth to some of the stereotypes we come up with. But we have to understand that no race is a monolith. But I think this is going to be a great conversation. I want to come back to this because I want to see if there are other things that we may be impacted by in terms of how we view one another. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more United Shades of Gray.
You're listening to United Shades of Grey on WSGW.
This is Kareem. We're back with more United Shades of Grey conversations of race in America. And we have just been talking about characteristics that we attribute to individuals' races. And so we were talking about the concept of CP time, which is something that has become a thing that people talk about, colored people time. And then we got, JP time, Jamaican people time, and so every culture has a group of people. It's not that just black people are slow, because there's a lot of very timely black folks, but there are slow folks in each of our. And I think you were saying what, Hawaiian time? What
yeah, island time they used to call
island time.
Island time.
I like island time. Island time says, "Hey, we'll get there. Get there when you get there. Take your time. Take it easy." And as they say in Jamaica, Irie, everything is all good. So I wanted to move, but are there other characteristics? What are some of the other things that we talk about in race? For instance, Asian people are smart.
Well,
what are you trying to say, that it's true?
Look at the
statistics.
Now Asian people are inherently smart. No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that the culture promotes such a work ethic that Asian people get admitted to universities and things more, and there's actually been laws and policies put in place.
Is there a correlation between like suicide and achievement in those similar cultures, you think?
I think that I don't have the data in front of me, but I do think there is. I think the pressure that especially Northern Asian families put on their kids is
achievement.
It's all about achievement and succeeding, and there's still in that society a very strong element of you're going to do what I tell you to do as a parent.
I've got a question in that same vein, Kareem.
Yes.
Is there a similar in the?
You said me by name.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. In the Asian community, you're going to study perception. I'll say, because I don't have the personal experience except through friends. You're going to study. You're going to get into college. You're going to do great. Is there that kind of same thing? And I've heard it claimed for black people with sports in higher education.
You know what? I think that at one, well, let's say something. There is a piece of truth that exists there. If a black man were going to succeed in life, he couldn't do it through education, because at one point it wasn't an option. He wasn't going to be a Wall Street stockbroker at one point because it was an option. So sports and entertainment have been a place where blacks have always been able to break those color barriers. So there is an element of truth that has existed because of the times that we were in. But now, I mean, I'm gonna say what white people always say: we had a black president.
Yeah,
I'm just joking, but I think now we understand that there is no limitation other than the one that we set for ourselves. And oftentimes, ignorant folks try to set for us, but we're able to overcome those as well. When we look at these things, what are some of the other characteristics or things that we attribute to races that we've heard of before? Let's just be bold and let's have this conversation.
Dancing, would be an obvious one. I think black people are great dancers. I fall to it myself.
You've never heard this?
if I go to,
I thought he was about to say gay people could dance.
Well, they can too. I think that's another stereotype. But we're talking about stereotypes.
But black people, man, if you
go to an event, again, most of the events I go to are predominantly white. A black person walks onto the dance
rhythm,
floor.
Don't get me wrong.
You're expecting them to be a great dancer, better than. It's just like, again, I like to refer back to Dave Chappelle. He always has the white guy. He plays the white guy, and he's always super stiff, and he can't move. And he has this.
Y'all just gotta learn to relax.
Exactly.
Like enjoy. It's on the 2 and the 4, not the 1 and the 3. That's what I always say.
I can't keep a beat for the life of me.
But God, Lord forgive me, but if you have ever seen my Aunt Patricia dance, Lord, I would say, what white woman is in your body? And for the most part, there is a sense of rhythm. I mean, black people, rhythm is a key component of culture. And you see that in many races or ethnicities that have a central theme that leads back to Africa. The drum,
the percussion.
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle did another skit on that, the music and
it impacts us. I mean, everything. So
they had him and John Marr going around, and John Marr goes goes into a white boardroom, starts playing the electric guitar. These white people go nuts. Women start to take their tops. He goes into a black barber shop, starts playing the electric guitar, and all the black guys look at him like,
what is wrong with this
What is
dude?
going on with this guy? And then what's the drummer from Roots?
Q-Tip. No,
Questlove.
Questlove
Starts playing the drums, and they go nuts. They all start dancing.
Yeah. It's the beat of the drum.
Yeah.
It is the rhythm of the heart.
Yeah.
That happens. So that's one example. What can you think of any other John that you've encountered that are things and these are stereotypes that some people actually believe are true? Can you think of others?
The thing that comes to top of mind, you talked about the angry black woman.
Yes.
The thing that comes to top of mind for me, though, is the elderly black woman calling someone honey, or
I don't know if that's
have you never?
That's kind of
I've never heard that
positive.
one.
You've never heard that?
No. I've heard it, but it kind of reminds me.
It's not a negative thing.
Yeah.
But the internet's perception, I'll say, is
come on, baby, call her honey, come on, dear. I mean, that is kind of a thing. I mean, now you do have some grannies out there, you know, the Medeas out there that will cuss you out, but I think that is kind of, I would look at that instead of being more of a stereotype of being someone who has looked at black culture and just kind of seen something that is a consistency.
Okay.
Because for the most part, those are kind of like real things in the community. But I was thinking that somebody said that one. Okay. But I think that Stacy, you let me know, are those things that are a part of our community that kind of just transcend, like regardless of what family you come from, there is that black woman who is older, like, come on now, sugar lump, come on, baby. You know, that is, you know, when I look at Martin and different comedians who play a black woman, that is the example that you get, because that's kind of what you find in our community. So it's kind of interesting to take into account. But one thing that I was gonna, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say, the angry black woman. It was kind of
definitely one.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not only that, but you know, when black people, when we have conversations, and I know I'm a very passionate person and I speak with my hands, and people are like, you don't have to get angry. Oh, he was so angry. I'm like, I'm not angry. Like, I am not, you are not gonna make me the angry black man. I am a passionate black man. I speak with my, you know, we're excited. Like, we tend to speak a little bit more.
It's like your sermons. You go to a black church versus a white church. Very different.
Very different.
Yeah.
Very different. They're very different experiences. We like to feel what we're talking about, and we're very expressive as people. Stacey Crosby says, that was more of a term of endearment. You get honey and sweetie a lot from white men also in the South. You absolutely there you go. Thank you, Stacey. You're absolutely correct. See, we always need a woman to correct us. You go to the South. Hi, dear. Well, I mean,
honey is like, I lived in West Virginia for 9 years, and I went back recently, and I totally forgot honey. You know, if they constantly call you honey, it doesn't matter. So,
all right. So I want to move to this next question, because I think this is probably going to take all we can talk about. I think this is a good one. Do we desire people of color to act white?
Oh, that's a great question.
Is there an expectation? Let's change that. Is there an expectation of people of color to act white, to be accepted?
What is acting white?
Like, yeah.
I'm just.
I'm sure it's in this.
I'll go back to the reference of, like, you talked about before, how again, and we're talking absolutes, and there's no absolute about any.
No,
race.
absolutely.
There's a spectrum, but the perception of, you know, the angry black man or the angry black woman, the common white person might view that as, you know, why are you angry? Why are you yelling?
Right.
And so the desire would be that doesn't happen, because it makes it feel like this is a confrontation versus a discussion. And so in that case, yeah, I think it's going to be hard. It takes time to overcome that barrier of, like, wow, they're yelling, they're angry, they're bitter about something, versus, hey, I'm just expressing myself and let's have a discussion.
Okay.
Do you think a stereotype that might be accurate, given what you just said, do you think a stereotype of white people is that we have this kind of facade that we put up of being cordial and nice to each other, and that other races might not, or other cultures, I'll say, might not really care about all that much? Is that acting white? Is having that, even if you really just want to hit the person across from you, you got to keep that civility and the
no, that's not what I'm talking about. No.
Okay.
That's I when I say acting white, I'm talking about Black people going into predominantly white spaces or Hispanic folk, and in those spaces there's an expectation of how they should show up when they come to those spaces.
What is that expectation?
Well, I think,
Well, take a business expectation of like how you might dress.
That's a good one.
Walking into a
Mark is a violation. Mark is a white violation in the white man's world. I'm gonna tell y'all that right now. Bruh man comes in wearing Taeyon Collection, which is a Black designer, and he is dressed to the nines. And every time you come around, Mark, people are like,
Who is that?
He is.
Who is that white guy?
I mean, because you're not. One of those expectations is that when you what is professional?
Yeah.
A navy suit, a black suit, a gray suit,
white shirt, blue shirt,
red tie, blue tie. Just and Mark comes in with polka dots. He may come in with pinstripes. And I love it, Mark. I love the fact that you're able to express your creativity, but even something more basic than that. And the fact that I'll say yes is the fact that California had to actually come up with a law called the Crown Rule. And it was basically that you could not be discriminated against because of the way you wore your hair. Now there were, when we look at it, braids, I know a lot of my friends like, oh my gosh, I don't like braids. They look nappy. One of my white friends told me that. And I said, do you like them because you can't wear them, or you like them because they don't look nappy, or is this not something that you're used to? And I'll tell you that even as a Black man, I had to challenge myself and to unprogram what I would consider a whitewashing of historical facts and presentations to be able to be acceptable with people being able to wear, their hair in a lock or braid, or even just, an afro, because it was not acceptable business attire.
I think in a lot of ways, it's just people are uncomfortable with things that are different, and so like I would wear definitely not standard clothes to a very conservative company.
Mm-hmm.
And I was yelled at. I was told it was going to hurt my career. And it, clearly it wasn't because I was white. It was because I wanted to wear pink socks, or I'm not going to wear the corporate uniform, as I used to call it. And again, I keep coming back to, the reality is the majority of this country is white.
Mm-hmm.
And so then any other race is the minority. And so, you're trying to fit in as a different race into a different, you're struggling with that.
Okay. Times. Oh, so now you didn't took me somewhere, Mark, because my question is going to be where are we trying to fit in? I don't try to fit in. That's one of the things.
Yeah.
And what does this look like? This place that we should try to. What should America look like? Since white people, you said it.
Yeah,
white people are
I think
the majority of the people here, and there's I don't want to use the term dominance. There is a positioning of white America in places of prominence. I'll say it that way. Great way to do that. There's a positioning of white people in places of prominence, and I often feel, this is my personal opinion, that white people want to control those spaces and never want them to change. So if I'm going to operate in those positions of prominence, then that means I've got to be a little bit more articulate than I might often be in other places. It means that I have to navigate, and these are things that are things that I really believe in and have had to deal with. And so I became the articulate one, or like he understands, because
you speak is definite, can be there's an implication of by anyone listening.
Okay.
Irrespective of race, I believe.
Do you think so?
Of the level of education and or sophistication or intelligence.
Oh my gosh, that is so wrong. That is so not true.
If you can't string together a sentence, that's not.
But this is the thing I'm going to tell you. I have a friend. He's actually been on the show. You met Mark Dotson.
Okay.
Mark Dotson knows how to code switch. we understand what code switching
Sure.
is. Okay, for those who are
I've
listening,
done it myself.
okay, code
Because
switch.
I'll speak a certain way to a certain group of people and a different way to other groups
Absolutely.
of people.
So code switching is a thing that we learned like early on in life in Black America. I just said his whole name, Mark Johnson. My friend Mark, ignore the last name. But anyways, he is a very accomplished attorney. All right. So when you meet him in the boardroom, he'll communicate in a particular way because he knows that's what's expected of him, and he doesn't want it to become a barrier. But when he and I are just kicking it, we having conversations, he is able to kind of clearly and he's gotten to a point. Let me clear this up for you, Mark, because if you hear this, I want to make sure that I make this very clear. He has gotten to a level of achievement in his space of law and in the profession that he's in that he no longer has.
He doesn't need to do it.
He doesn't need to do it anymore. And so the thing that I'm saying is, I think that white America expects everyone in America to be to some degree white American in how we operate and how we deal with things. That's an unspoken expectation.
All right, I'm going to be the young guy in the room real quick.
Okay, young guy.
I think that's an expectation on everyone. I think that there is a certain behavioral list, and it might be heavily influenced by quote unquote white culture. But I know that I talk very differently and say things that I would never say in the workplace when I'm hanging out with my friends and talking with them. When I'm hanging out with my family with different contexts. And there's a certain, when you're in a context, there's even a context for when you don't know what the context is. There's a certain set of behaviors that you're kind of expected to follow. And I think that goes beyond race. And I think I'm going to be.
Where does it come from?
This is where I'm going to be the young guy, and it's from society, man, and they just want you to conform. I think it comes very much from there's a certain set of rules that quote unquote need to be followed that don't actually need to be followed in order for people to communicate.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree, because I was going to go, if a white guy walks into the same room and does what the black guy might do, he's going to end up with the same result
Because he's acting black.
Well, or take if you walk into a professional setting and you know, it's the Southern thing. Take someone who has a Southern accent and uses Southern slang.
They're Southern, Mark.
Okay, well, but my point is, it's not necessarily a race thing. This is the environment we're in. That's a different environment. And so if you don't conform to that environment, people are going to look at you with askance.
I think that it is a race thing. And I think that the majority of white America has an expectation that their world should operate the way that they operate. And the reason I know that to be true is because we wouldn't have to make policies and procedures that protect people who don't fit into those groups. We wouldn't have to make, in terms of how you're able to bring your whole self into a place of operation. And this is something that is so basic, but white America, for me, just doesn't seem to understand that in order for us to operate in spaces, and I'm talking about me, in order for me as Kareem to operate in spaces, there are so many pieces and things that I would have to compromise to be fully accepted in those spaces. And some,
such as give me an example so I understand.
Just how I communicate. So
do you communicate differently to me than you would at corporate America?
Mark, I can kick it with you however I want to kick it with you. But this is what I'm saying about this, is that I am in a place right now that I am 100% comfortable with myself. I'm not looking to climb anybody's corporate ladder. What I have achieved. And so, like my friend Mark, I don't have a need to do those things. But when I talk to young Black individuals that are up and coming, Frank, for example, right? I'm like, Frank, I have to give him the lay of the land. Like, Frank, this is what it is. This is how we operate. This is how things happen. These are things you're going to have to encounter. And he'll come back to me and be like, you know what? You said it. And because he has a different perspective of what the American dream looks like, because a lot of the things that our forefathers had to deal with, he doesn't see on the surface. Many things are hidden.
But I would say what's expected of Frank is expected of everybody, irrespective of race or gender.
I don't think that.
as a young person growing up professionally right now, I'm building kind of my career at this point. I've been in radio for 1 year. I think that I'm still trying to figure out those rules too. We were talking about building professional relationships with news sources because I'm working in news. There's a certain set of rules that I got to follow, and I have no idea what that set of rules is.
However, look where you're at. Look what you're doing. Look at the level of what you're doing, where you are at the age that you are. And you just look at your experiences. And so what I'm saying is this. First of all, access and opportunities. In order to get access and for people to feel comfortable with you to use their name or to open a door or to scan their pass, they got to feel comfortable with you. And so there's certain things as an African-American man that I have to do in order for certain individuals. This is in the past.
You have to do more than a white guy
Absolutely,
for them to be comfortable with you.
To be comfortable
that
with
I would tend to agree with you on that.
Yeah, okay. What were you going to say?
Two
John,
things.
go
One,
ahead.
you said this is in the past. Can you elaborate on that? Because you kind of threw it away there. What do you mean this is in the past? Do you think that those barriers are still there?
No. I think that they're still there,
Okay.
but I don't think that they look the way that they used to look. Like, for
Okay.
instance, you can't kill an ideology. And
Yeah.
so, the Klan existed, right? People aren't wearing white suits anymore. Well, I mean, it's coming back. So people, they're making moves to bring the
I have
Klan
a white tuxedo.
I mean, not that ain't what we're talking about. But so the ideology, the idea or the thought process did not die, but it transformed into another way. So
But don't you think it's getting a smaller percentage of the people adhere to that or believe in that?
no, I think the majority of America feels a particular way. But even with making that statement, and I want to read your comments, Stacey. Even with making that statement about the majority of America feeling that way, I was listening to the radio this morning, and all of the people that were coming in that are voting for Donald Trump, even though there has been and there is yet to be proven, but there is this act of sedition that exists out there, that misogynistic language, homophobic language, racist language that comes out of him. They're still, why? Because it benefits them. And I think that when people receive a benefit, they'll overlook what may hurt or harm other people to keep that benefit. Stacey, real quick, even if you feel it is the same for everyone, the reception is still different and the expectations are different. I have been in a room where a white counterpart can come in and act in a certain way that is not what is expected, and he or she will be pulled aside and educated. Whereas if a black male, female, they would be criticized and may not be invited back to the table. Thank you for that comment, Stacey. What are you thinking, John? Because I see your head.
He's in deep thought over there.
He is in deep thought.
I can see it.
I'm still thinking. Don't put me on the spot here.
He's trying to formulate a thought.
But I'll tell you what I think is great. I love the fact that we're able to have these kinds of conversations. And I'm going to tell you, as you're in deep thought, I'm saying I have to come on and kind of pull myself out of it. But this is making me think about a number of things. And I want us all to be challenged to the point that we are not afraid to have these conversations. And I'll tell you one thing, and I promise these guys, if we're going to have conversations, we got to have safe spaces where we can have those conversations. Mark,
that's how you build a bridge. That's how you bring people together, to be able to have conversations like this in a safe environment where we're not judging each other. Because I know you're a good guy, and I think you know I'm a good guy.
Absolutely.
And we both know Jonathan's a good guy.
The story
fooled.
Jury is still out on Jonathan. But I want to thank you guys for continually tuning in for these conversations. I hope that you guys are being challenged. Thank you, Stacey. One of our listeners says, I look forward to these conversations. I hope that you guys are being challenged in these areas, because I sincerely believe that we can change anything that we can talk about, and change begins with a conversation. So I want to thank you guys for continually tuning in and listening to United Shades of Gray, conversations of race in America. We are here for you. Let's create the space. Let's challenge ourselves to move beyond our comfort zones and do something courageous. Thank you guys for tuning in this week. And as always, take care of yourselves. Grace and peace.